Um, anyway, good evening. My name is Nicole Fuller. I'm a registered dietitian nutritionist. I have been working in the field of dietetics for over 20 years now. I first want to thank you all for joining me this evening. I personally wish we could have been doing this in person. However, I guess at this point we should just be happy that we're able to do this at all and that we have the technology to continue to do things like this. Um, okay, let me see if I can advance my slides. Okay. So first I want to talk about the agenda for the evening. The agenda tonight is to talk about family meals, why family meals are so important. Not only is it a way for us to spend time together as a family unit, having a family meal has actually been shown to help kids focus better in school, develop better social skills, and learn to communicate. And really, no one should be scared or nervous when it comes time to creating a family dinner. A healthy weeknight meal does not mean it has to be a five-star event. We don't need to be a Michelin star chef. And we don't need to spend hours in the kitchen to create a healthy weeknight dinner. Okay. It also doesn't have to be made with the finest, most organic ingredients. Tonight, we're going to talk about ways to create fast, healthy weeknight dinners so that it can become a part of your routine. Tonight, I do want to talk about why family meals are so important, how to build a healthy meal, strategies for successful meal planning, and to go over some recipe ideas as well. So, it should be said that one of the most important things you can do is eat dinner with your kids. It sounds kind of silly, but it actually is really important, which I'm guessing is why a lot of you are joining us tonight. You must realize that it is important. Researchers have found that for young kids, having those dinner time conversations can actually improve their vocabulary even more so than reading aloud to them. Um, it doesn't only benefit young kids, it does benefit older children as well. For instance, school age kids having a regular mealtime is a strong predictor of higher achievement scores in school. Researchers have also found that teens who ate with their families 5 to 7 times per week were twice as likely to get A's in schools compared to teens who only ate with their families 2 times or less. There are so many good reasons to create a dinner time habit, but one that I wanted to mention is that it's been shown that kids who have routine family dinners tend to consume more fruits and vegetables and therefore are consuming more vitamins, minerals, and micronutrients. These same children have also been shown to consume less fried foods and less sodas and sugary drinks. Okay. Um, the nutritional benefits continue to pay off as these children grow up, because these same kids who have regular family meals as teens grow up to become young adults who are less likely to be obese, more likely to eat healthily when they are out of the house and on their own. So they're learning when they're eating meals with you, and they're going to take what they learn and translate it to when they're adults. Okay. Now that we know why having a family dinner together can be so important, let's talk about how we go about creating that dinner. Okay. How do we build a healthy meal? What are the components of a healthy dinner? I'm going to give you some easy tips on how to do just that. It's going to give you an idea of how your plates should look. And once you get an idea of how your plate should look, what should go on a plate, it's going to be easier to create a menu and to create a meal based on that. So for dinner, if you look at this graphic here, For dinner, half of your plate should be veggies. You can do fruits and vegetables if you want. Most people seem to have mostly just vegetables at dinner, but half the plate is either fruit or veggie or a combination of both. And when it comes to vegetables, mix it up, okay? Um, See what's in season and try those. Some grocery stores even have a section for seasonal vegetables. I don't know if anyone's familiar with the Abma's farm in Wyckoff, but I know at some grocery stores they have a section of produce from Abma's, okay? And when you're thinking about vegetables as well as fruit, think about eating a rainbow, a variety of colors, okay? Try and mix it up. Next are grains, or it could be starches, the carbohydrate section of your plate, okay? When choosing grains, we want to try and choose whole grains because they have more nutrients than their white flour counterparts, which is why we recommend whole grains, okay? And if you're not sure necessarily if something you're buying has whole grains, even though it might say whole wheat, you can always look at the label, read the ingredients. If it says 100% whole grain or whole wheat, that's what you are looking for in the verbiage. And when you're thinking about your dinner plate, the grain section or the carbohydrate starch section should be about a quarter of your plate, okay? Now moving on to protein. We should try and definitely have protein at our meals. And when choosing a protein, you want to choose lean protein. So lean meat, lean beef. And if you're not sure if your cut of beef is lean, you can actually look at it and see it. If it's dark red and doesn't have a lot of white through it, it's typically lean. What you want to avoid is meat that's heavily marbled, is what it's called, which is a lot of fat running through it, okay? And you can also trim the fat around if you get a cut of beef. Also poultry without skin would be a lean cut, fish, eggs, and you can also think outside the box. Beans and tofu are also considered protein, okay? And when you're looking at the plate, like you're looking at this graphic, a quarter of your plate should be protein, okay? A few more tips on building a healthy meal is choosing fresh produce, fresh meat, fresh poultry, seafood, as much as possible, the least amount of processed you can, okay? Frozen vegetables are fine, as long as they're not packaged in a sauce or come in a sauce. And the reason I say this is because a lot of times those sauces are super high in sodium. You can't control the amount of sodium that's in those sauces, and some of them have added sugars in it, okay? But when you use fresh, you can use the spices you want to flavor things without adding the extra salt. And same thing with meat, you want to choose fresh meat, not something like ham that's been cured, that has a lot of sodium and has been heavily processed. Also, don't be afraid to try new foods, okay? I've fallen victim to this myself. I've looked at a recipe and thought, oh my gosh, that looks amazing, but I've never tried X, Y, and Z. So I've avoided it. I say go ahead and try it. Don't stress yourself out. Maybe not do it every night of the week. Maybe try once every 2 weeks or once a month. You never know what you might discover in trying a new recipe. And you also never know, maybe lentils will be your new best friend and you'll be eating them every week. Last but not least, the cooking method. I recommend doing grilling, broiling, roasting, or baking for the healthiest method of cooking, and avoiding frying. And also frying, not that frying tastes delicious, but it does also make quite a mess. If you've ever cleaned up after frying something in your kitchen, you'll understand, right? And next, so now that we kind of have an idea of what our plates should look like, that visualization, that half vegetable, quarter protein, quarter grain, now we know what it should look like. I want to share some strategies on how to successfully plan the meals, okay? So one of the first strategies you could do, or a place you could start, is to create a menu. Okay, how do we create a menu? First, you have to decide, do you want to do it weekly, bi-weekly, monthly? For me personally, I generally do it weekly, but that's because I am a weekly grocery shopper. Um, so you can create a menu a variety of ways. You could write it down, what ideas that you're going to make for dinner. You could write it on the notes section of your phone or in the computer, whatever is easiest for you. And believe it or not, there's probably an app for that. Some things to consider when creating your menu. Weather. Um, I put weather in there because in the summer you might want to grill more often. So you could base your menu around things that are easy to grill. If it's cold, like this kind of weather, maybe you're into using your crock pot, making soups or stews. So weather does play a factor in creating a menu. Okay, you also want to check with your family. Check that family calendar. Is your family going to be around? I know for myself, when my husband was traveling, during times when there was a lot of travel, I would check with him, are you going to be around this week? Because maybe if he wasn't going to be around, the meals would look a little different if I was just cooking for myself and with the kids. And also activities going on. Oh, Mikey has soccer at 6:30 on Wednesday. We have to eat dinner before then. What could I make that's a little easier? So checking in with the family calendars, I definitely recommend. Another thing you want to keep in mind is, what do you already have on hand that you could use up? Try and use things that you already have on hand so that it's not sitting around for too long. So that's another way about creating your menu or your meal planning for the week. Um, if you're someone that likes to save money, I say get your circular for your grocery store, see what's on sale for that week. And again, keep in mind that produce that is in season tends to be less expensive than what's not in season. Okay. Also, check out No Shame in clipping coupons and seeing how you can save money and kind of base your meals on what you're buying that way. Also, think about leftovers. If you don't want to cook every night of the week, because that does get, tedious. I mean, a lot of work involved. Think about leftovers. Like maybe one night, Tuesday, I'm going to make a baked chicken. Maybe buy it a little bigger than you would normally. Instead of buying the 4-pound chicken, maybe get the 5 or 6 pound chicken, roast it in the oven, and then Wednesday night, you can make chicken soup with the leftover chicken. I know that for me, I've done that quite often. So think about how you can handle leftovers and create that into a menu. Okay. And last but not least, get inspired. If you need inspiration and you have some time, go on the internet, go look at some cookbooks. I know All Recipes is one that's very common that people use to get inspired. If you have an ingredient that you want to base your meal around, like you bought something like bulgur or farro because it sounded cool, but you're not really sure how to use it, get inspired by going to a website or a cookbook and try something that way. Okay. All right. Another strategy for successful meal planning is to stock your pantry and freezer with the 5 food groups. It's good to have some basics at home right at your fingertips so that also if you're in a pinch and you need to figure something out, you have things on hand. Okay, so I'm going to give you some ideas at things you should or might want to have on hand that are useful to create a meal. For vegetables, keep an assortment, I recommend, of canned vegetables. I mean, canned tomatoes around. Canned vegetables are good too. You can always use them in a pinch if you need to, but canned tomatoes, especially in this kind of season, in the colder seasons, they're great for soups and stews. A lot of crock pot dishes call for them, or if you want to make your own spaghetti sauce, tomato sauce from scratch. Myself, I put on the list having spaghetti sauce on hand because what a great meal in a pinch if you need to make, spaghetti, you got some frozen meatballs and you got the sauce. That's great to have. And go ahead and make sure you have some frozen veggies on hand. they're a great source of vitamin and minerals, and they don't get enough hype. They need more hype, the frozen veggies. People, I think, don't think they're as healthy as fresh vegetables, but really the freezing process locks in the nutrition, believe it or not. So they're not any less nutritious than fresh vegetables. And also the frozen vegetables are picked at the best point. So they are really a good thing to have on hand. As for fruit, you don't often use fruit when making dinner. People don't usually think about it, but there are recipes that do call for fruit. I would say just to have on hand in your pantry, you would keep some dried fruit, maybe some craisins or raisins to spruce up a salad. Um, Same with dairy. Dairy is not a big not for a lot of people that they use in a lot of recipes, but you might want to have some kind of shelf-stable milk in your pantry. Like Parmalat is a brand that is shelf-stable. Other things that you might want to have in your refrigerator on hand is Parmesan. Those last-minute Italian nights, like I said, meatballs, some spaghetti, some sauce, and a little Parmesan. You could get the pre-shredded packaged cheeses of like mozzarella or cheddar cheese, or even the bricks of cheeses that you can use in soups, stews, sauces, pasta dishes. Those are other things I recommend having handy. Now, when it comes to protein, you can for sure have a stock of protein. When I'm talking about protein, I'm not just talking about meat in general. Don't forget that beans, lentils, legumes, they all count as a protein and fit in this category, as well as canned fish. And nuts count as protein. These types of things are great to have on hand, something that you can add in your stock pile of things to have. You can use, especially like beans and lentils, in soups and stews. Again, this time of year, that's what I have on my mind. And you can also buy whatever protein you like, any fish, chicken, beef, and put it in your freezer to use at, especially if you shop at Costco like I do. You can save some, put it in your freezer, and then you'll have it on hand. As for grain, what types of grain should you have in stock when you're thinking about dinners? Rice of any kind, basmati, jasmine, brown rice, any pasta, any shape. I would recommend the whole wheat pasta or whole grain. Quinoa, barley. You can even, there are always things that you could put in the freezer if you want to freeze some bread for future use, or tortillas. And potatoes, obviously, that's another, it's not a grain, but it's a carbohydrate that is good to have on hand. And if stored properly, they keep for a decent length of time. And last but not least, the last strategy for meal planning is keeping a running grocery list. If you have an idea in your mind, oh, I want to make this for dinner next week, I might need this. Having a running list is a good idea. I am old-fashioned. I keep a Post-it note next to the next to my refrigerator, so that if I think of something, I can write it right there, or if the kids have an idea, they can write it there. You may want to keep this list on your phone, whatever is easiest for you. And there are actually some grocery stores, I know ShopRite, for instance, has an app that you can download on your phone. That way you can see what's on sale. It has a circular there, and you can keep a grocery list right on the app. Okay. All right, so now that we know what should be on our plates and how to go about creating a menu, let's think about how we can put it all together. And remember, it doesn't have to be gourmet. It doesn't have to be perfect every night. It's about building that plate and having the meal time together and nourishing our families, right? Okay, so creating a menu could be as easy as picking a protein. Okay, chicken, for instance. The weather's going to be nice. I want to grill it. I have these seasonings available. There you go. You got your grilled chicken. Next on the plate is the vegetable. Half the plate is vegetable. So what a vegetable are we going to do it? steam it, bake it, add a little, vegetable seasoning to it, steam it if you want, baking it with a little drizzle of olive oil, some salt and pepper, some crushed garlic, add that to some broccoli, that you have another great side. And then pick your grain or your starch carbohydrate of choice. Quite often, if I do rice, I will cook the rice in chicken stock, or I've been using this Better Than bouillon, which is why I put this on the slide here, just to give it a little bit of added flavor. But you can see this plate here. It is not, you know, it's this is probably a meal that could have taken 30 minutes to put together. You got baked chicken, you got your green beans, you got your potato. And this is about half your plate of the vegetable, quarter of your protein, and a quarter of your starch, okay? This could be rice, this could be quinoa, this could be salmon, this could be broccoli. Again, it's your protein, your vegetable, and your grain. Another easy meal, I mean, this could be once a week in my house, whether it's spaghetti or tortellini, but this is definitely a go-to. I would again recommend using whole grain pasta, cooking it to the package instructions. I often buy this brand, Barilla. This is whole grain. It's also GMO free. But you can really use any whole grain pasta that you find available at your grocery store. And as for the spaghetti sauce, I recommend choosing a spaghetti sauce that does not have any added sugar in it. Okay. Classico is a brand that I often buy, but again, each brand has different flavors, and not all of them have the same ingredients. So for instance, this tomato and basil does not have added sugar, but there are other Classico spaghetti sauces that do have added sugar. So find one that you like, that your family likes, and it's a great meal. Then for the protein, meatballs, okay? You can make them yourself for sure. That way you know what's in them. But I also recommend buying a brand that has minimal ingredients, or at least ingredients that you understand. This brand, Alfresco, Italian style chicken meatballs. I'll buy these. Sometimes I put them in the freezer. But this is a great last minute meal. You can sprinkle some Parmesan on top and get a little dairy that way. And then all you have to think about is the vegetable. So either do a vegetable or a salad, and you've got your meal. Okay. All right. So I also want to recommend using the USDA's Choose My Plate as a resource. Okay. It's a great resource. If you go to the website choosemyplate.gov, this is where this graphic is from, and what they recommend, and how your plate should look. If you think about your plate and creating a menu or dinner time meals for your family, and keep this in mind, it takes the guesswork out of it. They also have an app that I recommend looking into. It's, again, a great resource, and they do have recipes on there. They have sample menus for a couple weeks, and they have resources for kids, for adults, for teens. So I highly recommend looking into that. I did actually find a couple of recipes actually from that choosemyplate.gov website. This one I thought was great. If you do want, I know it's a lot you probably can't write it down all at one time, but if you're interested in this recipe, we can email this out to you. I loved this recipe because you're using leftover turkey here, 4 cups of chopped turkey for this recipe. So Thanksgiving is next week. Wouldn't it be great to have a recipe where you can use your leftover chicken? So, and you're using any type of whole wheat pasta you have, a little butter, mushrooms, whether they're fresh or canned. And what I want to say about recipes, when looking at recipes, I'm generally a type A person, but I've come to find out that recipes are meant to be changed. So for instance, this recipe has 1 teaspoon of dried thyme. If you don't have thyme in your seasoning, basket, pick whatever you think might go well with this. Maybe it's an Italian seasoning. Okay, so don't get caught up in the little details of recipes. Okay, if you only, if this says 1.5 cups of skim milk, if you don't have skim, you have 1%, that's fine. Here, 1 cup of frozen peas. If you don't have frozen peas, you have frozen green beans, use the frozen green beans. And you might actually, for this plate, I would probably add an extra vegetable on the side, for because 1 cup for the whole meal is probably not enough vegetable. So, and if you don't have the Parmesan cheese, you don't have to. And then you cook it per the instructions. But this would be a great recipe for leftover turkeys. Which we will all have after next week. Another great recipe, grilled steak and peppers salad with pears. Again, very basic. You got your meat, you got your vegetable and fruit here for this meal, and the grain would be the whole wheat pasta for this as well. If you don't eat beef, you can always change it to chicken and grill the chicken. If you don't like pears or don't want to use pears, use apple instead. If you don't like the gorgonzola cheese, and you prefer feta, use feta. This is meant to be, recipes are not supposed to be intimidating. Sure, a lot of times it's nice to follow it exactly as it's written, but if you don't have what's on hand, change it up. And plus, after our discussion, you'll have what you need in your stockpile in your pantry. You'll have something else that you can use for a meal like this. So again, if you want any of these recipes, if you weren't able to write them down and you thought they looked good, shoot us an email. We can get you the recipes. I just want to thank you so much for spending this time, and hopefully in the future, next year, we'll be able to do something like this in person where we could do a cooking demonstration about a healthy weeknight meal. So good luck to you all. I hope you have a great time learning new recipes and trying new things. And if you have any questions, feel free to ask. Thank you so much for joining me tonight.